And he was telling me how crazy our legal system is. And as an example, he was talking about in 1981, there was a guy named John Hinckley who shot President Reagan. And President Reagan survived. And this older attorney was telling me that in order to find an impartial jury for the criminal trial of John Hinckley, they somehow had to find 12 people who did not know the president had been shot. And if you did find those people, how bad an idea it was to let them decide anything important. So the reason why I had that flashback was, when we were planning to have this party, we somehow had to find a bunch of people to invite who do not think my dad's an asshole. And I think we had a harder job than the judge in the Hinckley case, to be honest with you, but thank you all for coming. So, if you look around, you might see there's a lot of faces you don't recognize. And that's because 90% of the people here are Hollywood extras who we have asked to be here because they don't know my dad. And they still charge us extra because they heard he's an asshole.
I'm starting it.
So no, in all seriousness, I mean, I want to pay tribute to my dad, but what could I possibly say about my dad that has not been said repeatedly in the daily public intoxication alerts in Naples, Florida? If you read them, you know my dad well. Now, when we were growing up, the one thing I really remember about my dad is that he was the coach of all of our sports teams. You know, he was always around. In hindsight, I'm not sure if he had a real job. I'm not sure if he was any good at it. But I do know that he was always coaching us. And I'm going to recycle a joke I used from his 70th birthday party, because probably no one remembers it. Oh, and by the way, if you do talk to my dad later, please don't tell him everyone here is extras, because he can't hear a goddamn thing. He has no idea what I'm saying. So let's keep the joke up. But, but one of the things I love about my dad is, we were, any sport we played, he always practiced with us, trained with us, tried to make it as good as we could. And it was funny because looking back, he treated all three of us like we were the next Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders. When in reality, we were three short, somewhat athletic white guys. But God bless you, Dad. Thank you. Thank you for believing us. Now, was my dad a great coach? Absolutely not. Was he a good coach? No. Now it's important to remember, any league we're in, he as the coach got to sort of draft the team along with the other coaches. Now, did it seem odd that year after year, our teammates weren't that good, but their moms were attractive? Yes, it did seem weird. He would later tell me that was not a coincidence.
He's a warden.
But one of the funniest things to me is, what is the worst thing that can happen? I don't mean to him, but everyone has to deal with him. What is the worst thing that can happen to someone with no sense of self-awareness and an overdeveloped sense of self-assurance? Give him a gavel and a robe and tell him he is a judge. He's been insufferable ever since that happened. Whatever self-doubt he may have had, however bad the decision he was about to make was going to happen, it disappeared. Now, had he never been a judge, would he have bought a house online 2 months ago? Would he, when he was at Maddie's soccer game a couple weeks ago, say to me at a much higher than conversational level that a 14-year-old defender was overweight? I don't know, but it probably didn't help. But what I really remember about my dad, and still to this day is true, he loved being a dad. and it was clear in everything he did, everything he said. He was always around, he was always there to support us, always there to coach us, always there to help us through whatever hard time we were having. His advice wasn't necessarily good, but he tried. And I can truly say that, every day of my life, I try to be as good a dad as my dad was to me. And looking at my son Declan over here right now, Declan is constantly mad at me because I'm wrestling him and basically tickling him and just basically not letting him win. And he'll say, Dad, why do you torture me like this? I'll say, son, I did it. I lived through it, you have to live through it. I'll bet your son's gonna live through it. And my dad also lets me be a grandfather. Where's Maddie? What are you doing back there? So watching my dad with his grandkids, whether it's Maddie and Declan, whether it's Brian's son Dante, whether it's Colton and Zora, that gives me a lot of joy as well. Because there's nothing he enjoys more than being a father or a grandfather. And I want to close with one of my dad's favorite lines. So one of the things about my dad is he was, I would say he was a warrior for a long time in terms of how long he tried to play sports. I would say into his 40s, he was playing softball, he was playing basketball, he was playing two-touch football. And after a while what happened was he was getting injured more easily and healing more slowly. And so he started playing golf. And from the moment he started playing golf, all he wanted to do was play golf, watch golf, talk about golf. No matter how little we wanted to talk about golf. But every time he would come home from playing, I'd say, Dad, how'd you hit him today? And he'd always tell me, not so good, man. And after a few years, I would say, Dad, I don't understand. Every single time I asked you how golf went today, you say you didn't hit him that well. So I'm curious, are you just not getting any better or your standards getting higher? And he said, Dad, Matt, I've been thinking about that myself, and I think what I'm dealing with here is I'm already in the twilight of a very mediocre golf career. So that was about 35 years ago. Yeah. So, but I'll say this, Dad. You've worked hard, and sometimes during your life, and it gives me a lot of happiness that you're living the life you want to live right now. So you deserve all the relaxation, you deserve all the joy, and as far as the twilight of whatever you're doing, I say keep raging against the dying of the light.
Oh, thank you, Mike.